Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Bannerlord Mods of the Week. The first episode was a great success, so I was very happy with the response. In the second week that Bannerlord now has been released in early access, we luckily have received a whole bunch of new mods that we can enjoy that will enhance the gaming experience. Sure, even at this stage, the mods can still be considered small in scale, but there are definitely some cool new additions that I think you will like. One thing that is worth mentioning though is that some of these mods might become obsolete or interwoven in the actual game, with more patches to come since the game gets so regularly updated due to its early access status. So please keep that in mind. You can find the download links for all of these mods in the description down below, and without further ado, let's take a look at the mods of the week for Bannerlord. First, we begin with probably the most popular mod that has been released in the past week, and that has quite a few people talking. It is the Dismemberment mod. The title says it all, and basically this mod ensures that whenever you attack the target at a certain angle, they will have a chance to have their heads cut off. Once the dismemberment happens and you have damage reads enabled, you will be notified in big red letters mentioning the dismemberment. The effect is really cool and feels quite natural, especially with motion blur on. I personally keep it off though, but the animation of the head being chopped and falling down seems to be almost a vanilla asset. It isn't until you stand still and look at the head that you can clearly see that the head and neck texture just have been placed elsewhere without any new textures being added to the place where the neck was chopped off. Now that doesn't look convincing at all, but again, you will only notice it if you stand still and really take a look at it, which most of us will of course not be doing since we are in the midst of a battle. From my experiences, the dismemberment only happens with enemies that are killed by my character, and apparently there can be a crash that can occur if you perform an attack on the head of a horse. I, however, haven't had a crash with this mod yet, and it runs very smooth for me. The cool thing about it is that it adds some brutality to the battlefield and kind of reminds me of the battle scene in Braveheart. I hope that in the future, more dismemberments will be added like different limbs, and then eventually the battlefield will leave one hell of a nasty impression after the dust has settled. Then next up, we have a very cool mod that in some ways gave me flashbacks to the old Rome Total War expansions. Those were the good old days. The Fire Arrow Enabler is another mod of which the title says it all, namely that whenever the archers will use arrows, they will be doused in flames. Now there are multiple flame arrow mods available, and the reason why I chose this one is because this utilizes the flame arrows everywhere except the tournaments, whereas some others don't make this distinction. It's a very small difference that can go a long way. The highlight, of course, of this mod is having battles or sieges at night. Seeing the sky light up with hundreds of arrows being fired is a beautiful and frightening sight. Sometimes a wall of fire is being shot towards you or the enemy, and it can really make the battle feel more epic. Especially sieges where artillery adds in the mix with its flames, it feels very natural to have this added as the standard type of arrow. The reason why it reminded me of Total War Barbarian Invasion is because there, you had night battles too for the first time that were highlighted with the fact that the flaming arrows looked so much cooler when it was dark. The exact same effect can be seen here, and it's another mod that will add something very cool to your Bannerlord experience. Next up, we have a small mod that might actually have a big impact on your battle experience. You can play Bannerlord in many ways you want in terms of difficulty, even with the vanilla options. You can even set it to where your character takes as much damage as the rest of your men. This often makes the game very brutal and difficult, but I know a lot of you out there, me included, do love this since we don't feel like a god as in games such as Dynasty Warriors. But there might still be people who would enjoy a bit more of an arcade feel to the game, and with of course so many games nowadays having replenishing health, it came to no surprise that this mod was also added to Bannerlord. Now I can already see some people rolling their eyes and think that with this replenishing health mod, the game becomes way too easy. You take 1 or 2 hits, go stand back for 10 seconds or so, and then you are back at full health. But I can assure you that it does not go this fast. In fact, During some playtesting, I headed into the enemy army at the beginning of the fight and took 2 hits and then refrained from the battle to see how long it would take for me to be back at full health. When the enemies were routing and we had won a battle of over 800 men, my health was still not back at 100%, which is a good sign. The health regeneration is really slow, and I think that will be up to a lot of people's liking, who just want to have a bit more of an easy experience. It doesn't make the game easy whatsoever, but might just give you an edge. Personally, I know I will stick to the vanilla type of no replenishing health, but it wouldn't help to see if you like the battles a bit more with this mod in place. Next up, we have a mod that in all honesty, I don't know if it clearly works or not. In my head I think it does, but it might be a placebo effect. Let me explain. The following mod is the Troop Collision mod that aims to fix the problem of all the troops hurting up so much during battles and sieges, and you basically get a soup of glitching units all attacking and swinging through each other. With this mod, the units will take a little bit more distance of each other to avoid the armies of merging together in a chaotic mess. Now the issue of course is that the nature of many battles and sieges results in hundreds of units fighting mere inches away from one another. Especially the sieges, where they go through the broken areas of the wall, it is not uncommon to have a few hundred guys fight each other on an area of only a few square feet. Now I want to say that I did notice the units holding indeed a little bit more distance with this mod enabled, but don't expect a huge difference, as you will still get a hurdled up army that will fight each other in the smaller courtyards. When compared to the vanilla battles, I want to say that there are indeed less units glitching through each other, but it can still be difficult to see within all the battles and chaos. In the background, I will show some clips of the same battle with and without the mod enabled, so you guys can judge what you are seeing and if it is indeed works. In essence, having a mod like this would make the battles feel more realistic and ultimately also more fun to play, since you can properly pick out your targets amongst those hundreds of units. The next mod is a funny and quirky mod, but something that adds a really cool detail that has been a feature in other games that have been praised. The Grow Beard mod lets your character grow a beard over time during the campaign, and in games like The Witcher 3 and Metal Gear Solid, it was praised for details like this to show the passage of time. By now, this is nothing special anymore, but does get appreciated if it is put into a game. With this mod, you can easily choose to enable or disable it. By default, the mod is set to disabled, and all you have to do to enable it is head towards the nearest tavern and talk to the tavern keeper. Here you have the option to start growing your beard. If you do this, and your character already has a beard, it'll be shaven, and from there on, you will get a daily message that your beard has grown. It will take 3 days or so before you grow a little bit of a stubble, and then it will take a week each time for the beard to visibly grow more. It's a very cool feature that again fits naturally into the Bannerlord experience, and if you want to turn it off, you just go back to the tavern to disable it, or shave your beard to have it start growing again. And then we finally come to the final mod of the week, which is the Recruit All Prisoners mod. This mod gives you the ability to recruit the eligible prisoners you have collected over time whenever you visit a town. This makes it easier to get a full-size army and is, in my opinion, a bit better suited for late-game content where you can recruit a ton of units at once, as I think the campaign is very generous with how many recruits you can get in the big cities in the beginning. I never felt the urge to need more units until I got further. This does make it easier to receive new troops than to recruit hostages after the giant battles, and might also be realistic, seeing as how some captured soldiers would turn and now fight for you. It would be more beneficial in the beginning to sell your captured men like always, but in the long run, this mod might also prove very useful. And with that, we end another week of mods for Bannerlord 2. I'm glad to see that the mods this week are a bit more impactful for the game itself, especially the Dismemberment and the Flame Arrows are cool additions in my opinion. Things are now picking up steam, and I cannot wait to see what next week has in store for us. Don't forget to let me know any recommendations on mods that come out that I should surely talk about in the next episode, and if you have the time, please check out some of my other YouTube channels you can find in the description down below. I have a Battlefront 2 focus channel, a gaming review channel, and several Let's Play channels as well. If you like what you see, then please go ahead and subscribe to those channels. I hope you all enjoyed this week's episode, and we'll see you all next week.